Meeting to order. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could please have a roll call.
Commissioner Harper Pedersen.
Present.
Commissioner Gutierrez is absent this evening. Commissioner Bergman.
Present.
Vice Chair Bradley.
Present.
Chair Silberman.
Present. So the next item on the agenda is public comment. This public comment period is general public comment for items that are not on the agenda. The commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act. However, the commission's general view is to refer items to staff for attention or have a matter placed on a future commission agenda for a more comprehensive action or report. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? All right. For those of you who are here to speak on an item that is on the agenda, we do have speaker slips. They look like this. I think they're in the back. It does help the note takers if we have one. It also makes sure that I call you. So if you don't mind filling one out and bringing it up, that would be very helpful. All right, the next item on the agenda is the minutes from the December 18th, 2017 meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes?
I didn't have any changes.
Sharon? I'd entertain a motion to approve them.
I move that we approve the minutes from
I'll second.
December 18th.
There's a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Harper Pedersen.
Yes.
Commissioner Bergman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley.
Yes.
Chair Silberman.
Yes. So the next item are public hearing items. I'm going to read the procedure for a public hearing for those who want to hear it. Staff will present a report on the history, physical features, et cetera, on the application, followed with the staff's recommendations. The applicant may then make a presentation. Thereafter, interested members of the community may speak on the proposal. When all interested parties have had an opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed and no further discussion from the floor can be held. The commission will then consider the evidence and make its recommendation. If you challenge a public hearing item in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this notice, the public notice, or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to the public meeting. Again, there are speaker slips on the back by the door. And if you don't mind filling them out and handing them up to the recording secretary, that would be helpful. The speaker should come up to the microphone to speak since the meeting is being recorded. This will also assist staff in preparing the minutes. First up is a consideration of an ordinance amending the San Carlos Municipal Code. It appears that there's a request from staff for it to be continued to a date certain, February 5th, 2018. Does anyone want to make a motion to so continue it?
I move that we, continue item A to February 5th.
Is there a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Harper Pedersen.
Yes.
Commissioner Bergman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley.
Yes.
Chair Silberman.
Yes. The next item up is 1100 Industrial Road, Suite 13, APN 112-420-130. Request for a conditional use permit to allow commercial recreation land use in the planned development district. Does staff have a presentation?
We do, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Andrea Martisich, Associate Planner. The item before you this evening is a request for a conditional use permit for commercial recreation at 1100 Industrial Road, Suite 13. The project site is part of a larger complex known as the San Carlos Industrial Park, which is outlined in yellow on the screen. The complex consists of 4 buildings. 3 of those are located in the area bound by Britton Avenue, Industrial Road, and Howard Avenue, and the 4th building is located across Howard Avenue. The applicant this evening, King's Camps and Fitness, is proposing to locate within Suite 13 within the Industrial Road building, which is outlined in red. This building is also closest to Britton Avenue. The entire 1100 industrial building is approximately 99,000 square feet and is comprised of 18 individual units. current uses within the 1100 building include office, printing services, construction services, a physical therapist, and other small industrial uses. The general plan designation is planned industrial, which allows for a variety of light industrial and flex uses. The zoning for the site is a planned development zoning, which was established through Ordinance 988, which requires a conditional use permit for recreation uses. Surrounding land uses include industrial and commercial uses, and the surrounding zoning is general commercial and industrial, as well as planned development. King's Camps and Fitness is a fitness facility for youth and adults that has been operating in San Carlos since 2013. The business was previously located at 837 Industrial Road and is relocating due to the upcoming construction of the development known as Meridian 25. The business uses physical obstacles as part of the fitness program, which is conducted in a warehouse setting. And this is a picture from the applicant, which shows what the business looks like inside. In terms of hours of operations, most classes either occur early in the day or late in the afternoon, primarily in the morning at 5:30, between 5:30 a.m. and 7, and in the evening between 4:30 and in some cases going till 6:45. As you can see, one of the classes does occur in the middle of the day, and that is a class for kids and generally involves parent drop-off. The weekends are available for parties, which have the most people attending. The number of employees does vary depending on the particular class, but can range from 1 employee up to 5 for larger parties on the weekends. So as I mentioned before, obstacles are used as part of the program. Some of those are permanent, so they're either attached to the floor or ceiling, and others can be broken down. So the floor plan shows the various areas which are broken up into storage, workout areas, and the obstacles themselves. And I did want to point out, and I can go over the specific condition later in the presentation, staff is recommending a change to one of the conditions in the use permit, which is condition number 3. And that condition originally required all uses to occur indoors. And in speaking with the applicant, they do sometimes go for runs in the neighborhood. So staff is proposing a change to that condition, and I'll go over that as part of the motion, the specific wording of what we're recommending. So parking for the San Carlos Industrial Park was originally established in 1988 as part of the planned development. In 2007, to clarify parking requirements, the owners consulted with the city and prepared an amendment, which was then recorded against the property. The document was approved by the city and replaced the original parking requirements. So this parking plan assigned a set number of parking spaces in specific locations to each unit regardless of the use. The parking plan also established a significant number of visitor spaces that are for use by the owners, tenants, or guests. Since 2007, the Planning Commission does not have any records of any concerns that have arisen because of that new parking agreement. Per the parking plan, for this space, there are 6 dedicated spaces and 40 visitor spaces allocated specifically to 1100 Industrial. While most classes occur early in the morning or late in the evening, one class does occur in the midday, which is the one involving approximately 7 to 12 children. As mentioned, parents typically drop off their children for this class, and therefore parking would not be as impacted as were it an all-adult class. The early morning and late afternoon classes, which are frequented by adults and more likely to have cars park on site during class times, occur primarily outside of regular business hours. Staff did visit the site at various times to observe parking, and at each visit, staff did observe open parking throughout the site. Staff finds that all the required findings can be made to approve the request as outlined in the staff report. The proposal is consistent with the governing ordinance and the general plan, which encourages diverse and flexible uses within the east side of the city. The specifics of the business, including amount of employees, Hours of operation and number of clients are all compatible with existing uses in the area. Specifically, a majority of the activities occur outside of standard business hours. However, as with any use permit, the Planning Commission can re-review this item if any negative impacts occur. Staff did notice this item by sending it to property owners within a 300-foot radius, as well as publishing it in the newspaper, and has not received any comments as a result. This is the formal motion, should you wish to approve the item. And at the end, you'll see the revised motion that staff is recommending, which would read, no business activities shall occur within the parking areas of the San Carlos Industrial Park. So as an example, if the classes wanted to walk to the street, to Industrial Road where there's a sidewalk, they could use that for running if they so chose. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission grant the use permit, and I'm available for questions. The business owner is also here as well. Thank you.
I have one question. Have there been any complaints, either parking or noise, with this business at its current location at 837 Industrial?
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Was it the intention, I mean, I see in condition 1 that the use has to be as described in the report. Was the intention that the hours couldn't change without coming back to the commission? Is that the intention?
So the intent is that minor alterations to the description could occur, and whether those were considered minor and could be approved by the community development director, that would be decided by the development director. A larger change, the director would refer it to the planning commission. So minor changes to hours, I would say, would not come back. But if the hours, for example, changed from 5:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. straight, like we've seen with other commercial recreation where they're just open all day, that would constitute a significant change, I would imagine. And of course, if there's any other impacts or concerns that come up as the business starts operating.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to be heard or have a presentation? Do you mind just coming up to the microphone? I'm sorry.
Good evening. No, nothing, no presentation or anything. Just want to introduce myself as Mike King, the owner of King's Camps and Fitness, and open myself up to questions if you have any.
So when you're torturing your clients during a boot camp,
Training.
when you're torturing them,
Different tea.
presumably they're leaving your facility and running through the parking lot as you force them to run around the block, right?
With a whip, yes. No, very seldomly do they leave the complex. We do it on times, go ahead and leave to go ahead and broaden the ability for them to run, because we have treadmills and stuff that take care of the majority of that inside.
But I mean, aren't they running through the parking lot? I'm not in any way opposed to them running through the parking lot. I participate in my own boot camp torture, and usually we run out around the block and come back. So presumably, because you want them to get their heartbeat up, so you don't want them walking out to the sidewalk, because that would be too nice, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
No, except that does kind of contradict
I know.
what
That's
the
why
staff was
yeah, I figured.
was writing in condition 3. So
Yeah. No, we'll fix it.
okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
I have 0 boot camp experience, so I will rely on your expertise.
Yeah.
Have parking lot experience.
Yeah, is that right? All right, so does anyone have any other questions for staff or anyone? Oh, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Shannon beat you to it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
She always beats me.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Harper Pedersen.
Yes.
Commissioner Bergman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley.
Yes.
And Chair Silverman.
Yes. Any discussion other than we need to remodify condition 3?
That's my only concern.
All right. So, it seems like it just has to, I don't know, like adding something like, no business activity shall occur within the parking areas, other than that which is necessary to, reach the street or something like that. Does that work?
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I will make the motion. I move that the Planning Commission approve the request of Mike King for a conditional use permit to allow a small-scale recreation use at 1100 Industrial Road, Suite 13, APN 112-420-130, based on the findings and for the reasons incorporated in the staff report, and as conditioned in the conditional use permit with condition 3 amended to read, no business activities shall occur within the parking areas of the San Carlos Industrial Park, except those necessary to reach the street.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Harper Pedersen,
Yes.
Commissioner Bergman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley,
Yes.
Chair Silberman.
Yes, I think that's it. So moving on to item 6C, a public hearing on 1040 to 1052 Laurel Street, APN 051-347-090 and 051-347-100, request for design review waiver, conditional use permit, tentative map variance, and protected tree removal permit to allow construction of 2 new buildings and 2 townhouses and one live-work unit each. I will open the public hearing. I believe there is a presentation.
There is. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Laura Russell, Senior Planner, and I'll be presenting this townhouse project with a live-work component at 1040 to 1052 Laurel Street. So these are the actions before the commission this evening. Design review is always required for new buildings, waiver for ground floor ceiling height, conditional use permit for parking location, tentative map for condominiums, a variance for height at the rear, and a protected tree removal permit. So I'll introduce the project to review each of those entitlements briefly. And then the applicant this evening will also give a presentation which will include more about the design and the community comments that they received. As mentioned, the project site is 1040 and 1052 Laurel. It's 2 lots. Each currently have a single-family home in an area of 6,000 square feet. So the total project site is 12,000 square feet. Single-family homes are located directly behind the project. The general plan classification is mixed use, low density, and the zoning is neighborhood mixed use. They both allow up to 20 units per acre. So here's the site plan. The applicant is proposing 2 new buildings. Each of them would have 3 units for a total of 6 units. There's a public utility easement that runs down the center of the project that's shown here in yellow. Each unit would have an accessory commercial space located on the ground floor adjacent to the garage. The 2 accessory spaces fronting onto Laurel Street would be deed restrictive as live-work units for the life of the project. So those areas that are shown in blue would be the live-work components that would be used as a commercial space. So a little bit about the design and development standards. The design is 3 stories with the height of 36 feet 8 inches on Laurel Street. At the rear of the building, it's actually shorter. The project meets all setback requirements, and it includes a 1.3 FAR, where 2.0 is the maximum. Each townhouse would have a private 2-car garage, which meets the municipal code parking requirements, and each garage is designed with room for bicycle parking inside. Further, in terms of design, the mass of the buildings is broken up with a change in plane, a projecting design element at the front facade, that sort of C shape in the white that comes forward, and a couple of different materials. The primary exterior materials include cement board in white, cement board in charcoal, and horizontal wood board. And we do have the samples of those if the Planning Commission would like to see. We haven't really used the cement board too often in the past, so I wanted to draw that to your attention. So it is not just plaster in place, it would be those board materials. These, like I mentioned, are the primary materials, and they are integrated around all 4 elevations. On the Laurel Street elevation, there are windows, green screen with plants, and low landscaping to create a welcoming frontage for pedestrians. The entrances to the units are located on the sides through an architectural archway feature. And this obviously is the rendering of the ground floor looking down Laurel Street, and those live-work spaces at the front. The proposed landscaping meets the municipal code requirement of 20% of the project site. So 1,200 square feet are proposed of landscaping proposed on each lot. There are 7 new trees proposed in total, and the redwood tree in the right rear corner would remain with the project. There's shrubs, ground cover, and succulents proposed throughout the side and rear yards. And the front elevation has a green screen that would be planted with 2 different vine materials. And there is also 4 street trees proposed. The next entitlement is for a waiver of ground floor minimum height. The yellow line shows where the applicant is proposing 14 feet 6 inches, where 16 feet is normally required by the municipal code. Staff is supportive of this waiver as it will reduce the overall height and help the building be more compatible with its surroundings. And you can see the approximate location of the 2 buildings on either side in the gray blocks on the 2 sides of the project. Next is a conditional use permit to allow parking within 40 feet of a street-facing property line. The intent here of the code is to minimize the visual impact of parking. In this diagram, I put a yellow box around what's actually the side of the private garage. So when a car pulls in there to the side, that's the part that we're trying to minimize any impact. So in this particular case, the parking is fully enclosed within the building envelope. And it's further minimized with the green screen, the windows, the plants, the clear story windows that go across the top. So all of those design elements would not let people know that there's parking behind there. Additionally, because there's an easement down the middle of it, there was not an opportunity to really locate the parking at any other location on the site or to go underground. There's a tentative map proposed for condominiums. All of those requirements and conditions of approval are standard, so I won't go into any detail here, but if the commission has questions, I'd be happy to take those. So turning now to the variance. The applicant is requesting to exceed the allowed height of the 3rd story at the rear of the buildings. The municipal code has transitional height requirements when projects are adjacent to the RS6 zoning. So this is a section drawing with Laurel Street at the right-hand side and the rear property line at the left-hand side. Due to those transitional height standards, the hatched area is allowed to be 30 feet. The applicant is proposing a height of 33 feet 4 inches. So the yellow box that I've actually drawn in here on top of the applicant's drawing is the very specific variance area. That's the difference between the 30 feet height limit and the 33 feet 4 inch height limit. So this little additional area of height really enables the project to take on a townhouse configuration and have a full 3rd story above the 2nd story below. Staff is supportive of the variance, and the staff report includes the basis for the findings. Notably, the project site has a storm drain easement that runs down the center of the project. This is a unique physical constraint on the site, which does not apply to other sites in the zoning district, and it limits the type of development that's possible. The variance allows the townhouse-style development that increases compatibility with surrounding properties. Neighbors were also supportive of the townhouse style of development, which relies on the variance to be feasible. We're trying to advance the slide, just a second. Because it's trying to load something else, maybe. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. So turning now to tree removal, the staff report says that there are 11 trees on site, but that's actually a minor error. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear on what's in the arborist report. So what's on the slide here? Sorry, back one. Here we go. This is what we need. Because the arborist report includes one tree that's actually legally on the adjacent side, but very close to the property line. So on site, there are 9 trees. There's 1 on the adjacent property and 1 street tree. So that's the total of 11. The proposed tree removal includes 3 protected trees, 5 trees that are not protected per the municipal code, and 1 street tree. Doesn't,
No, I don't think so.
should I continue this and we'll come back? Or do you want to talk about it further?
I can wait.
Okay. It's very possible, but I counted many times, so I think we can get it sorted out.
All right.
So here's the proposed tree planting, and all of the trees would be 24-inch box size. So first on site, the redwood tree at the corner would be preserved and protected. And then they propose to plant 2 Japanese maple, 1 honey locust, 2 crepe myrtle, and 2 silver linden and raised planters over the easement. So that's a total of 1 protected stays in place and 7 planted is 8 trees. You're checking my math again.
No, this math works.
Oh, good. Okay. In regards to street trees, they propose to remove the 1 tree that's existing in bad condition and not a great species for a street tree and plant 4. So that would be 4 off-site trees. So the total with the project is 8 on-site, 4 off-site, total of 12. The existing total that's in place right now is 9 on-site and 1 off-site, total of 10. So the total number of trees would increase with the project. So the applicant is going to speak more to community outreach, and some of the neighbors are here this evening as well. But to summarize, there were many, many concerns about the initial design, and we received a lot of feedback and a really big document about that. The applicant redesigned the project, met with the neighbors quite a few times, and met with staff as well. Since the project was redesigned, staff has not received any additional concerns about the project in response to letters or any ongoing kind of review of the project. There's 2 letters of support received by staff, and those are available to you on the dais. So the majority of the conditions of approval in your packet are standard, but I just wanted to point out a couple of the unique ones this evening, or the ones that are related to some of the neighborhood concerns that came up through the review process. So starting on packet page 45, condition of approval number 13 is related to lighting, and we do have a standard condition for lighting, but staff strengthened the language on this one due to neighbor concerns about potential spillover onto the single-family neighborhood. Conditions of approval 21 through 23 are unique conditions specifically related to the live-work component. Number 24 is a condition for tree protection for the redwood tree that's going to remain. Number 26 requires a construction notice to neighbors to the satisfaction of the building official. Number 27 is about potential safety enhancements at the driveway, where the driveway crosses the sidewalk on Laurel Street. These were the recommendations that came from the applicant's traffic engineer that analyzed the on-site circulation conditions. So we've integrated those as a condition of approval with the final design to be determined by the city engineer and the community development director's satisfaction when we go into the building permit plan check phase. So if the commission wishes to approve the project, this is the motion that you would make. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions or to go back and talk about trees if we'd like to do that. And then the applicant has a presentation as well. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for staff at this time?
Just one about the parking location. I know that we've had a couple other projects where we've heard that the parking location within a certain setback of the street has been problematic, and we've had to approve a permit or a variance of some sort to approve it. At that point, we had talked about maybe easing the restrictions of our code so that they can have these this underground or within building parking easier to approve. Do we have any progress on that, or am I thinking, or are the projects so different that the correlation I'm drawing doesn't make sense? Lisa, you could probably.
Sure, thank you. That is a relevant question, because as we've seen in the past, that's correct. There's been other projects that have needed to apply for a conditional use permit, to allow that variation or deviation from the code, especially on some of the smaller lots where it's difficult to push the parking all the way back in the rear. So as the commission may imagine, the intent of this standard is to make the parking less visible. Because we have somewhat of a variety of different lot sizes and different locations, I would assume that when this code was created, the city found that this was a good standard to put in place, but did consider that there will be other lots where this would be challenging. So we have the ability to have applicants apply for use permit to allow that parking to be closer, provided that it is screened. So in this particular case, you can see that the applicant has met that criteria. So we are trying to make it a little bit easier in terms of process. So during this last fee revision update, the use permit fee for a minor deviation of the standards has been significantly reduced. So that's one way that we're managing it. But as we're looking at code cleanups, we could always take another look at that to make sure it's working the way that we want it to.
Great, thank you, Lisa. That's exactly what I was looking for. Those are all my questions right now. I'd like.
What are the materials in between the buildings? Is that just concrete, or is that some other kind of?
I don't recall if that's a special paving on the driveway. It had to meet the engineering department's requirements to be over the easement, but maybe the applicant can speak to that when they come to the podium. Would you like me to go back to the tree slide, or should we hold on that? I think I can explain it, but
Let's hold off just yet. And we'll let the applicant come up, and then I'll deal with trees later. Does the applicant have a presentation, or?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Mike Pittler, the project's architect. My company's name is Workshop One, and I'm accompanied here tonight with Dylan Barlow, who has a set of drawings and can answer any specific information on numbers and other facts and figures pertaining to the project. And standing next to me is Amit Haller, the CEO of Dragonfly. And before I get started talking about the project, I thought it might be a good opportunity for Amit to introduce himself. And given that we'll be before this commission a variety of times in the upcoming year with a few different sites that we're working on together.
Absolutely. Good evening, Commissioners. Just taking the opportunity to introduce myself and Dragonfly. We have several projects here in the city, and we're probably going to present several times this year. So just to say hi and good evening, and we always going to be very happy to receive any feedback, any comments, and we'll try to accommodate as much as possible the beautiful city of San Carlos. Thank you. And Mike is the project manager in all of our projects, so I would let him to lead it, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. I had planned a more robust presentation, which is represented by the slides. This is our first time presenting to the city, so Laura's presentation did an extremely thorough job. So I'll be a little faster on some of the design stuff and really try to focus more on things that weren't picked up in Laura's presentation. Project site we're all aware of. This is the existing site with the two side-by-side single-family homes on an end of Laurel Street that has some residential and some commercial, but it is not what I would call the more robust commercial or active side of Laurel Street. And the project as Laura presented it. When my company, Workshop One, got involved, Dragonfly had been working with other designers and other folks on some previous projects, and that's what I want to talk about here and what's in front of you. And this is a project that we first took to the community and a project that Workshop One inherited from its predecessors. It was a mixed-use building in the quintessential sense, with a 16-foot high commercial spaces on the ground floor and residential flats up above, all served by an elevator, a residential lobby on the ground floor, parking stackers at the rear of the site, and 2 exit stairs. It was 50 feet high, code compliant, but truly maxing out the allowable envelope that a building could on the site. And when we took this to our first outreach meeting, there was a lot of concern and a lot of feedback that's represented in a summary letter that Stacy, one of our neighbors, had helped to author. And after receiving that letter, we took an opportunity to meet with specific neighbors that were immediately adjacent to the site, the ones that had, I would call, the most skin in the game, or the most investment in our particular part of the block, to meet with us privately as the representatives of the neighborhood concerns. And had subsequent meetings, and what we resolved is that ultimately the concern wasn't the density of 6 units, and it wasn't necessarily the concern of the commercial space, it's that the methodology for accomplishing both of those programmatic features led the building to be just massive. And how can we reduce that mass? And the idea came up, what about trying a townhouse approach? What could that afford us? With the townhouse approach, what became tricky was how do we then include the commercial space? Because that's a requirement for our zoning district and appropriate for a location along Laurel Street. And so in working with staff and working with our neighbors, so on and so forth, we resolved to approach it as a live-work style concept, where an owner would buy a townhome, but it would help with a small business. It'd be a small business owner, as you see in a lot of live-work throughout San Francisco, Oakland, and other parts of the Bay Area. And we think it's Silicon Valley, is a great place for that kind of product for 2 of the 6 townhomes. And so what we concluded is that we could actually take a big haircut off the building, reduce it from 4 stories to 3 stories, take it down by approximately 16 feet in the rear of the site. It's a little taller in the front of the site, and come up with a project that is much more compatible to the surrounding single-family homes. This set of diagrams will show you the evolution of the project. In yellow is the haircut, and the lower mass in white is what we're left with. In PowerPoint, I would have toggled through 3 different animations. Unfortunately, I can't do that with the PDF. But that's effectively the haircut that we took off, still maintaining the program of the residential, which is, for us, the key component. Again, the facade. On the landscaping front, we worked a lot with our neighbors as well, through a variety of individual meetings and emails and so on and so forth, to try to identify what their interest was with the intersection between our property line and their property line, and how we deal with existing landscaping that might overhang the property line or have an impact on our neighbors, and vice versa. And the big concern was really the giant redwood tree, which we've taken a big measure to design the landscaping around it appropriately, to protect it during construction, and to preserve the tree. It's an amenity to everybody. And then our neighbors behind us in particular have a couple bottle brush trees that we'll be preserving, irrigating, pruning, and doing all the types of things to help maintain and preserve their health. And what ultimately came down is, can we get a green screen between our property and the neighbors' properties? And so that's represented by the hedge toward the rear of the site and as it wraps around the side, and a variety of screening to help screen from cars' headlights coming down the driveway. And that's, again, something that you see at the end of the driveway. Additionally, one of the benefits of the townhome approach is that the rear yard landscaping is really private use generally for the two adjacent townhomes. There is a small shared area behind the driveway with just a small area to recreate. But we replaced the original design, which had a completely common use rear yard, to one that's more privatized and, again, compatible with the adjacent single-family homes. Here's a view looking down Laurel Street. We saw this view a few minutes ago at what one of these live work spaces would look like, with the residential entry gate pushed back to the left and a heavily landscaped sidewalk and pedestrian path. And again, a view looking down the driveway. And I think that's it for the slides. Regarding the materials, did we hand out the samples? Okay. So we take an approach we don't like to do as an architecture firm, and Dragonfly, we don't like to do stucco, traditional stucco, which is finished in place, and it takes a long time to finish and requires often painting or is prone to cracking. We use a cement panel, which is a product that's been around for quite a while, but is becoming very popular nowadays. And it has a factory finish. It's that's lifetime, doesn't need repainting, doesn't fade, doesn't wear. If you ever need to access the building, you can remove it, avoiding, as we've often seen, scaffolding going up on a project that's 9 years old and months being spent chipping off stucco and replacing and all that. So we do like it as a material. It's smooth and it's high quality and quite beautiful. And the other product that we're looking at is this wood board, which is a factory-treated wood that's not susceptible to rot and to fading and to all the other maintenance requirements that have to happen to keep wood looking like wood instead of turning gray and cupping and all those things that can happen to wood. So it's what I would call almost an engineered wood, but it is 100% solid wood. What they do in the factory is they bring it up to a very high temperature and they basically petrify it to cook out anything that pests and infestation would want to come and get. And that's the product you see in front of you. But there's quite a few of those on the market too. And that would be the type of wood that we're looking to use. Something, again, that's ultimately, I don't ever want to say maintenance-free, but very low maintenance, so that the project 10 years from now looks like the project on the day it was built. With that, we're happy to take any questions that you have, in case I missed anything.
Can you speak to whether or not the center portion there where the parking is some kind of material, paver material of some kind, or if that's just concrete?
I believe, Dylan, can you confirm what was drawings? We're working with Outer Space Landscape Architecture on the design. I believe where we left off was that it would be a treated concrete, so poured in place with a color and a finish to look like pavers.
Okay.
But not pavers. But I'll let Dylan look at that quickly to see what it's called out.
It's a permeable concrete, which is going to be poured in place, as Mike said. There's joints that run along the driveway to give it the sort of paver look, but it's a permeable concrete, so it works well with stormwater.
Okay, thank you. And one other thing, I think it mentioned in one of the conditions about the possibility of other safety enhancements at the entry-exit area. Could you speak to those? There's the plan is, because that is very dangerous. That's this very highly walked area. I mean, I think this said something about, a mirror so the drivers could see, but other markings or other ways that you can ensure the safety.
Yeah, I can tell you some of the ways that we do deal with these things. Ultimately, for this project in particular, as we get into the building permitting phase, working with the city staff, Public Works, and with our transportation engineer, I want to further develop those plans to identify the exact ways that we'd be dealing with this. Oftentimes, it's through lights, it's through audible warnings, it can be through paving, mirrors, other things like that. It could be, you know, we have a setback from the property line, so it can be in the way that we treat the landscaping to not clip the view, to maybe open the view a little bit more. The exact ways that we're going to implement those, it's early for me to say at this point in time, but safety is our, you know, a fundamental concern of ours in all respects, whether it's with the structural code or related to fire safety or pedestrian safety.
Is there, I don't think there's, is there an elevator in this?
No. No, so.
When you did your okay.
Yeah, one of the things that the townhouse approach ultimately afforded us is eliminating a common elevator, common lobby, common egress stairs, which really allowed to take away a huge amount of the mass of the building or a huge amount of the square footage. So everything is privatized.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Did you investigate solar panels on the roof? I don't see them on the
Yeah, so
renderings.
thank you for bringing that up. One of the aspects to the project that I did not delve into, but we're happy to, is to talk about some of the technology and innovation that we want to bring into the construction, whether it's solar or anything else. And I'd be happy to have Amit come and join me to talk about that. On the roofs, we are looking at solar electric. We're looking at a lot of different potential things to deal with that. In fact, we're trying to create projects that are zero net energy and reliant on electrical energy, because that is sustainable versus using gas appliances. And there's a lot of great innovation in the electrical appliance world, whether it's induction cooking, as we've seen, or water heating that's done through heat pumps versus, you know, gas or purely electric. If you want to hear more about that, I'd be happy to bring Amit up, though.
Thank you. Not now, but later, maybe.
I appreciated the summary of the process that you went through with the neighbors to come up with the redesign, and I have read the letters of support as well. I'm curious, are there any concerns you were not able to address from the redesign?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
I'll just say this, it's been over 50 years since I got out of architecture school, and I've never seen a better set of drawings, Mike.
Thank you.
That's a compliment.
I know. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's from my heart.
Thank you. Well, I always tell my son that handwriting is everything. Work on it, make it look good, because that helps to set the first impression. There you go.
So I have, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I have one speaker slip from a Stacy Niewood.
Impossible to spell, easy to say.
One more time?
New vote.
New vote.
Hi, my husband and I are the authors of that very, very long letter that everyone received. First, I would like to thank Laura for helping answer all of our questions through the process. And also really would like to give my hats off to Mike and the Dragonfly crew. It's somewhat intimidating when you buy a house with your entire life savings and 50 feet's going up in your backyard. So I would really like to implore the city of San Carlos to eliminate 4 floors and 50 feet high buildings adjacent to single-family homes. I believe it is inappropriate, as do many of the neighbors. So Mike and One Workshop, thank you for working with us, and we really do hope that you guys approve this permit in its current form. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here from the public who wants to be heard, who hasn't filled out a speaker slip, but can come up anyway?
I want to thank you guys, first of all, for, all the changes and the work that you've put in to make us neighbors feel a lot better about the project. So we really appreciate that. The concern that popped up during your presentation, I just wanted to make it on the record, is that any audible sounds from parking. I am not, I don't know how to word it properly because it just came to my head 2 minutes ago, so I haven't really thought much about it. But, those sounds tend to be, horrible sounds, and I don't think any of the neighbors want to hear that all day, all night, every time a car comes and goes. So I wanted to put that on the record that.
You
that's a
mean
concern.
as a safety mechanism, you do not want the beeping?
Correct.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's small and minor. Yeah, at the sidewalk. I'm sure we can come up with something else, but I wanted it officially that I object to beeping noises. Okay, well, good. I'm glad. That's all, and I just want to thank you guys again, and I recommend approving the project and their variances.
Thank you.
I have a question for staff, somewhat related to this. If you're going from the fourth floor to the first floor transition, I think at one point in one of our meetings, we discussed that we actually, I think we, at one point said we felt the same way on those, on the Laurel Street going from the fourth to a first floor, and that was somehow supposed to be considered as an amendment to the zoning. What's the status with that?
That is correct. So as the commission is aware, the city is currently working with the Opticos consultant team out of Berkeley to work on our development standards for a single-family home. But in addition, and not only to working with helping to improve our code for single-family, they will also be working with the city to look at modifications to the MUN, the Mixed-Use Neighborhood Zoning District, of which this project is within, to address the issue of the fourth story. So that is something that we are planning and, well, we are working on, but we wanted to make a little bit of headway with the single-family standards, and that's going really well. So we'll be able to pick up on addressing the fourth story in this particular district in the very, very near future.
Thank you. I just hadn't heard. I knew we talked about that at one point, and I just wanted to make sure it was still moving forward. So we share your opinion on going from the fourth floor down to single story, and it didn't come up before, so I just wanted to put that out there. And I too want to thank the developer here for working with the community. I mean, a lot of these come in front of us, and usually we have several letters in opposition that we work through. So to have 2 letters in support of that means that the community and the developer worked really close together to come up with something that everyone can live with, and I want to thank everyone for participating in that.
So is there anyone else from the public who wants an opportunity to be heard, who hasn't had an opportunity to be heard?
I do have one question for the developer before we close public comment.
Oh, sure. I have, of course, no, I have a question for staff as well.
Okay.
But go ahead.
And forgive me for my lack of knowledge about the live workspace, and I just wanted to go through the blueprints again to make sure I didn't miss anything. I guess I don't understand. Is there square footage specifically carved out for the live work area? Because it looks like in the plans that just looks like any other condo on the first floor, and maybe I'm not looking at the right thing.
There is. So I don't have a laser pointer, but looking at in front of the parking spaces against Laurel Street,
Okay.
there's a door directly off the sidewalk, right? That space all the way up to the very faint dashed line.
Okay.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
That's the area that would be deed restricted
Got it.
for commercial uses. We're not installing a wall per se
Oh, I see.
between that and then the residential entry, which is around the pedestrian path on the side. So it gets 2 entrances.
I see.
We could put it in. We could opt to put it in later. It could be up to the future owner. It's just a detail at this point. I decided to dash it in. My thinking is that if I had a home business there, I don't think I would want a solid wall. I'd rather keep it all open. If maybe you have employees or something like that. So that's the configuration as you see it. The storefront itself is solid glazing, basically floor to ceiling, clear glazing, with some landscaping, the entrance door, some signage and awning and those types of things that demarcate it as a commercial use.
About how many square feet is that?
Dylan can look up the exact number. In the 200 range?
200?
220?
220?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ready for some trees? So, starting with 103, on our packet. That's this one right here. So that's the tree report. So there are currently, according to the report, there are 11 trees currently on site. Is that right?
It's a little bit confusing. The report originally included the tree that's on the adjacent property, and then after the survey was done, we realized it was on the adjacent property. It looked like it was on the project site.
So I mean, these trees are numbered 1 through 11. They're also identified by species. Which tree is on the adjacent site?
Pretty sure it's 5.
5, which is a Blackwood acacia?
Yes, it's number 5.
Okay. And when we're talking about the adjacent site, we're talking about the site to the north?
Correct.
The residential house, well, I guess it's a multifamily to the north?
I believe it's a commercial building, but yes, the location to the north.
Oh, all right. It looks like apartments, but, so there's currently 10 trees on site, and all but the redwood tree are going away. Is that right?
9 on site and 1 straight tree, total of 10. All but the redwood would go away.
Okay. The street tree being number 7?
Correct.
Okay, so whether it's a street tree or not, there are currently 10 on site, including the street tree, and 9 of those are going away.
Correct.
And then which landscape page is best for me to understand which trees are going in and where they're going?
This one on the screen is good, actually.
Page number it is in my packet?
Let me find it. L 3.0 is a good one that has the planting plan. So it's very similar to this, but it actually has the plant species called out. I think that's probably a good one. So people in the audience can also refer to this one that's on the screen. So I can walk you through it verbally,
I'm
and then
looking at it.
see if the applicant needs to chime in as well. So the 4 street trees are
Obvious.
pretty obvious,
Yeah.
right? In both of the side yards, there's an entrance to the middle townhouse unit, so by both side property lines. On those 2 side property lines, those are the Japanese maple.
So is that, do you have your mouse? Can you show me your mouse? Show it with,
Try. So that's right here.
Okay.
Is a Japanese maple.
All right.
And the corresponding one is a cross.
okay,
So those are Japanese maple.
all right.
And then I can't quite read the species on the sheet in front of me. I can get the full-size one. This is a new tree in the corner. This is a new tree in the corner of the private space. This is 2 trees in elevated landscape planters. And these are in planters so that they don't conflict with the storm drain, but located at this location to block the headlights from cars coming in per the neighbor. New tree right here at this location. And then here's the big redwood in the corner.
Okay. And then the screening bushes, what variety of bush are they?
The screening bushes.
Real, actually, I don't really care what breed they species they are. How tall do they get?
No, Dylan, if you remember.
I know that was something that we discussed with the neighbors quite extensively, but I don't recall if we identified the height. In my mind so far, and this would get clarified as we develop the plans more in the building permitting phase, I could see it being something like a photocarpus or a pittosporum, which I typically keep between an 8 and 10 foot height.
Okay. And then is there a condition somewhere that requires that the landscape be planted in compliance with the landscape plan? Because I looked for it and I didn't see it. And I think it's just because I must have missed it. Where is it?
It's normally integrated, since it's in the plan set, that it's approved by the Planning Commission. So we normally implement the landscaping plan consistent with your approval, subject to any very minor changes. Like Mike is talking about, that staff may substitute a similar, do you know what I mean, very similar plant material.
Sure, but where does it exist? I'm sorry, I'm just highly sensitive to this particular issue in light of what is happening across the street from my house.
We consider it integral to condition number 1. So it has to be in conformance with the plans. With tonight's date, all of the total number of plan sets, so that includes the 5 landscape sheets prepared by Outer Spaces.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so we did identify, as part of that conversation, it's the fern pine that is called out, and there are height specifications for that within the packet. So they would need to plant either that or something that is substantially similar to that in order to meet that requirement.
Okay, thank you. All right, does anyone have any other questions for staff or the applicant?
I do have one question for staff. And we can talk more in detail offline if it's not super pertinent, but I'm just curious, the people that would buy the condo and the live workspace and then use that space for whatever purpose they might, say they're a real estate agent and wanted their own office, would they have to go through separate business permitting, or what would happen with that space as far as, I mean, it's not just somebody's home office that we've stuck in their garage, right?
That's correct. I mean, I believe somewhere maybe Laura can answer this, because I think I saw it mentioned in the staff report. There are certain uses that those spaces would need to be used by, or certain types of uses that can operate in those particular spaces that are fronting along Laurel Street. But again, that's the idea, and that's part of the reason why the design supports the use, because of the glazing. It's intended to look and function as an actual business space. So that's, you know, the purpose of the deed restriction and why some of the design elements were incorporated into that area of the building the way that it is, so that it looks like a shop front, an office.
If you can just point me to where it is in the packet, that'd be great. Just trying to get a better grasp of my understanding
Are
of
you
this.
looking for the condition language itself or design elements?
Condition language, actually. The design elements make sense, and I do remember reading that about the glazing
Okay,
and the
packet page
frontage.
46. Condition number 21 is the general condition, and so those 2 front units, the 2 accessory spaces fronting onto Laurel, have to be occupied by a commercial land use, and it would have to be one of the ones that doesn't require parking, as you're familiar with, less than 1,500 square feet. So those are the land uses that would be allowed. We're going to record a restrictive covenant against the property that the city attorney will review. We've already reviewed some draft materials. It's not in final form, but we're kind of gotten all on the same page with that. Number 22 is any signs have to comply with the sign ordinance for those locations, can't cover the windows. And number 23, this is language right out of the code related to transparency for commercial uses. So those elements together would reinforce the commercial aspect of the live work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move that we close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
Chair Silberman?
Yes. Is there further deliberation among the commission?
No, I mean, I like the design. It's a little jutting up from the street for me, but the use of materials helps break that up, so that's it as far as my design comments.
All right, well, can staff put the motion up on the screen, please?
I'll move that the Planning Commission grant approval for design review, the waiver, conditional use permit, tentative map, variance, and protected tree removal permit to allow 2 new buildings with 2 townhouses and 1 live-work unit each for a total of 6 units at 1040 and 1052 Laurel Street. That's APN 051-347-090 and 051-347-100 for the reasons incorporated in the staff report and with the conditions in the conditional use permit / code compliance certificate and tentative map certificate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Harper Pedersen?
Yes.
Commissioner Bergman?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bradley?
Yes.
Chair Silberman?
Yes. Moving on to item 7, reports on recent city council actions.
I don't have any for the commission this evening.
Any commission comments or planning commissioner comments or reports?
None for me.
No. Is there any correspondence other than the 2 letters relating to the 1040, 1052 project that were up on the days?
No, none this evening, just the 2 that you already have received.
Any planning staff comments, reports, or updates on current projects?
I would just like to take a minute to update the commission on some of the progress the Single Family Home Advisory Committee has made. Their last meeting was on December the 20th, and they worked through a number of different ideas to address single-family house scale and massing, and that material is available on the website, so I want to make sure that I announce this in case there's anyone watching who may be interested or following this, that information is available on the Planning Division website. There are a few items that the committee needs to, wants the staff and the consultant team to circle back on, so we will be scheduling a meeting with that committee in mid-February. And the way that it looks, we feel that we'll be able to get through that meeting, receive their recommendation, and then start working on organizing a community workshop where we can share all of that progress with the larger community. So that is going well. And like Commissioner Bergman asked earlier, now that we've made significant progress, we feel we've made pretty good progress, we'll be able to pick up on the work that we need to do in the downtown core. So we'll also be looking at height in the 6, 7, and 800 blocks of the core along Laurel Street, as well as the area on the south side of Laurel, not the south side of Laurel, but further down Laurel, South Laurel, to look at how we could address the height issues that that are allowed within the MUN district, which is of course 4 stories, 50 feet. So we want to work on making an adjustment there. So that's where we are with that process. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or Al. And I believe that is all the updates I have for this evening.
If there's nothing further, the meeting is adjourned.
Good job.